Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Step Up to the Mic. This is the place, folks, for aspiring and established speakers to take the stage, deliver their talks, and bring their stuff directly to you, directly to you, directly to you. You don't have to go to see these folks. We are sending it right into your living room. Folks, today, our featured speaker is, and this is a unique unicorn of an episode. I love this. I'm so glad this guy decided to come on. He is a corporate event host. He's a comedy magician. He's a public speaking coach. And he is the founder of the Showman to Speaker coaching program. Folks, please welcome to the show all of those things, Speaker Tom Elliott. Tom, how you doing today, brother?
Hello, Rory. Yeah, great. Thank you. You?
All right, not bad. Better than I deserve, man. I'll tell you right now.
Oh, I love that phrase. I love
Take it.
that phrase. Better than I deserve.
I will take it all day. Tom, this is fascinating the way you approach all of this, and I can't wait to hear more about it. Why don't you start off, just tell everybody who is Tom Elliott? What are you about, brother?
Sure. Well, for those watching the video version of this, just to clarify, I'm not the kid from Home Alone. As much as you might think, it's not me, right? I live in the UK, a place called Gloucestershire, so kind of southwest of the UK, and I spend my time traveling around, hosting and performing at corporate events, so award ceremonies, fundraising galas, annual dinners, conferences. I run a team building event, all that sort of thing. And so my background is in kind of performance. I do comedy and magic together, stand-up comedy and magic. And I guess the Showman to Speaker program came out of that. It was like, what can I take from the arts and the world of the performing arts and give that to people that don't like public speaking or don't like watching themselves back, and what can they learn from the arts to really give them that confidence and creativity as they approach their keynote.
Nice. I love the approach. Like I said, it's different. Comedy magician. So now I've seen a lot of magicians, but usually the
Yeah.
only comedy I see is when the magician kind of messes up. So how do you put
Yeah.
comedy magician together? What's that about?
Sure. And so the going wrong thing is a little bit overdone these days, isn't it? Tommy Cooper, of course, was the classic of that. And I don't think anyone can really beat him on that. So I like to think of comedy magic as like a stand-up comedian's approach to magic. So we can allow for the odd thing to go wrong and for that to be funny, but I like the comedy to come more from the audience interaction, the interaction with someone on stage, the banter with the audience. So like a stand-up comedian's approach to doing magic rather than a comedy magician going wrong. I love all that stuff, but it has been a bit overdone, hasn't it?
That's great. That's amazing. Now there are a lot of folks who coach public speakers. They've done speaking themselves. Maybe they've done a TEDx talk, and so they're trying to kind of coach people. You're taking a different kind of an approach because you have plenty of stand-up experience and speaking in front of crowds and whatnot. But you're this showman to speaker is you're using your entertainer experience to
Sure.
deliver not just a plain talk, but to help people kind of like put out a livened up version of the talk, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so look, one of the things I spent a long time thinking about when I started out in show business, that when you start out as a performer, the tendency is that you knowingly or unknowingly copy everyone else, right? And so you find yourself. I used to buy. So the way the magic world works is you can buy like DVDs. Do you remember those things?
Oh yeah.
DVDs where you could watch someone perform a trick that they'd kind of devised and put together, and you could do it. And I used to. He's actually a friend of mine, a guy called John Archer, who does comedy magic over here. He's worked along with Penn and Teller out there in the States, actually. So
Okay.
he's an amazing guy. And I used to buy his DVDs, and I used to do the tricks that he'd released when I started. And I used to try and pull off his thing, his style, his way, even his jokes, because they were on the DVD, right? And I realized I couldn't, it wasn't working the same way. I'd seen him deliver it, and he was getting these massive laughs and kind of great responses, and it wasn't happening for me. And then I realized, hang on a minute, I'm not John Archer. John Archer is Archer is Northern, So Northern of the UK, different accent, which therefore makes different jokes funnier, right? And different personality. He's much more of he calls himself a lovable bully, like that. That's the way he describes his stage persona. I'm not that. I'm a bit more kind of enthusiastic, a bit more positive in terms of my persona. So it suddenly realised, I'm imitating someone, and I'm not getting a response. And so the way that I kind of coach people now is not to think about or to be careful about not imitating someone, but instead thinking about the qualities that you have and the characteristics you have. So I quite often say to people, what is it that people say about you, Rory? Well, let's do it now. Rory, what is it that what would people say about you in terms of, if they were describing you to someone, what would they say?
Oh my goodness, you're gonna put me on the spot like that.
Oh, I know that is a bit of a reverse role.
I love it. That's great. People talk about how I have a voice for radio. I hear that a lot.
Okay, nice.
They tell me I'm a very good listener, because I usually do a pretty good job with that. And I suppose they say I'm funny, but I don't think I'm like ha ha comedy funny. I think I'm more like dry, little sarcastic, sort of old guy poking fun at himself humor funny.
I like
So
that. Right, let's take that because that's probably the easiest bit of the example, right? So what I say is take who you are. So one of the things people used to say about me, and they still do, is Tom, you're quite joyful and you're quite you have a good energy about you, right?
sure.
Now, I take that, and now don't get me wrong, I'm a human being, right? Just but I take those characteristics, and when I think about preparing anything for being on stage or up front, I try and take that and I turn it up a notch, turn it up by 10%. And what that does is it takes the most positive characteristics of who you are and brings them to the stage so that it communicates across the audience. And so rather than copying so Northerners, I told you John Archer was Northern, Northerners get away with being a little bit, in the UK, they're, I guess, personality-wise, they're known for being a little bit more cynicism, what's the word? The words escape me. Not cynical.
Cynical. All right.
That took a long time to come out.
It's all right. I thought you were trying to say
so
sinister for a minute. I was like, where are we
not
going with
sinister.
this?
No, that's a very different thing. And so it works for him. And so for you, the kind of upping or turning up the notch of being an older guy that makes fun of himself, telling the jokes. If you turn that up a notch, what it does is it draws people to you because they relate to that. They go, oh, he's the guy that pokes fun at himself. He's the guy that is slightly over energetic. He's the guy that's a lovable bully that you kind of like him, but he's also taking the mick.
Right.
And so by turning up the notch on those characteristics, you draw an audience into you because they know who you are and what you're about. And it stops you from imitating other people too much.
Nice. Okay. So it's all about you and your own strengths and what you're trying to put out there.
Sure.
And you use that to kind of build your character on stage. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Your persona?
because what it does is it means that you're no longer becoming someone else on stage, particularly if you're a speaker and you're trying to convey a message. You don't really want to have a stage persona as such. You want to be authentic. You want to be who you are. Even with comedy, I mean, you can do comedy as a character. There are lots of people that do it successfully. But actually, majority of comedians, magicians, actually just want to be themselves, but or need to have the confidence to be themselves, but just turned up a notch. If obviously you have to turn it up a notch, otherwise it wouldn't convey to the bigger room. People would find it boring. But if you turn it up a bit and you kind of turn it up by 10% or so, it carries, and people see that in you and they connect.
Nice. So sounds like it's part of your Showman to Speaker coaching program. You work with people to
Absolutely.
kind of take a look at themselves and find out what to accentuate, how to accentuate the positives, that type of thing.
Yeah, and there's loads of things you can pick up on the energy that someone has, the kind of thing that, are they a storyteller, are they a joke teller, are they more of a teacher, and have that sort of rapport with people. There's so many elements of someone's character that if you draw out and you turn up a bit, can be really engaging and intriguing for being on stage.
Nice. So if people are listening to this and they're like, "Man, that sounds pretty good. I think I could get into that." Tell them more about what you cover in your program. It sounds like this is where you begin, what we're talking about now. And then,
Yeah.
what are the next steps? Kind of what do you do after that? I know you don't want to give away the secret sauce to the program.
No, that's okay.
Hey, people gotta if they want it, they gotta buy it.
Sure. So no, I can run through it. So I've got like a bit of a framework. So we call it about showcasing your character, which is basically we go in depth of what we've just spoken about. Then we talk about writing the scripts. That's about framing the how you're going to share this keynote, how you're going to open, how you're going to close, what are the stories, what point are you going to make. We talk about comedians using callbacks. So whenever you go and watch a comedian, they'll quite often tell a joke at the beginning. About halfway through, they'll refer back to that joke, and you find it funny because you remember the joke from earlier on. Maybe at the end, they bring the whole thing to a close by linking the very thing that you think they've moved on, and they bring it back, and it's funny. So we think about how do you shape the script of your. And I talk about scripting. I don't necessarily believe in scripting as such, but I do believe in kind of intentional thought about how your structure of your talk is given. And we think about how that works. We think about the callbacks and we think about a through line. So if the audience was going to go away and kind of quote you on something, what's the one thing you want them to go away with? You might share lots of different things within the talk, but ultimately all of that should lead back to one kind of key takeaway. What is it that they're going to take away? Just an example of that. So I have a bit in my show where I get the audience to engage, and so I make about the Home Alone joke, and right at the beginning, and then I say, look, I'm a comedy magician. That means I want you to laugh and I want you to be astonished. And so after every trick, I want you to do this, and I go, I want you to stand up, put your hands on your cheeks, and go, oh my days, like that, and we have quite a bit of fun with the whole audience on their feet going, oh my days, with their hands on their cheeks, and they do that all the way through. And the best thing about it is at the end, or if people see me even months, even a year or so later, the first thing they'll do to me is go, oh my days, like that. If you can incorporate something, it doesn't have to be as silly or as ridiculous as that, but if you can incorporate that in a keynote or that sort of element where people go, oh, he's the guy that, or she's the woman that got us to think about this, or this was the kind of key line that I took away. I've never forgotten that key line that she had. So we talk about the script and we talk about the structure of the keynote, and then we talk about how to rehearse it, how to kind of get it stuck in. A lot of people feel nervous about public speaking because they're worried about memorizing this 600 word, 1,000 word speech that they've written, and if they trip over a word, that's it. It's thrown them completely. So we talk about how to learn, how to kind of internalize that talk rather than memorize it. So instead of trying to remember every word, what we want to do is create it so that it's kind of in us. So a bit like any other conversation, it just comes out in the order that we need it to. So we talk about that, and then we start to think about direction. Could you stand up for bits? Can you sit down and introduce levels? And we think about what it looks like if you were treating it like a theatrical piece. And what does that look like? What does an emotional arc look like? And where does that come into it? So there's so much in it, but it's thinking about how can we think of this like a performance piece, but at the same time being true and authentic to who we are.
Nice. No, I love that. The especially the audience participation part. I mean, that's not always possible with
No.
where you're talking and how you're doing it, but when it is, that's a really
Yeah,
powerful tool.
don't try and get a bunch of accountants to stand up and go, "Oh my days!" It's not going to go down that well. I've tried it.
Definitely got to know your audience for sure. Absolutely. I love what you said about memorization because that's what I hear from folks a lot. When they're putting together a talk, they're trying to memorize every single word and pause and hand gesture. And
Yeah,
some of it has to be organic and a little natural, it seems like. So you're not in favor of just strict memorization until your eyes are bleeding. You're talking about
yeah.
incorporating some sort of knowledge in here. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I mean, by all means, start with a fully written script because what that does is it gives you clarity of thought. It gives you a sense of where you're going. It It makes you think about key phrasing. If there's, language is important, and so if there's a particular phrase that you like or you don't like and you need to change, you can think about it at that point in the process. But as you move on, what you don't want to do is be so reliant on getting it word for word in the script that when you take to stage and you're feeling nervous and maybe your palms are sweating and all of that stuff and your head's racing with a million things, the microphone doesn't work very well, so you're already thinking about all the other things that could throw you off. What you want to be able to do is go into presentation mode, not like I've got to remember a script, but this is just something kind of in me that I have to share. And you've thought about it enough, you've rehearsed it enough that you can just deliver it as if it was a conversation about the weekend. And the way that works is you go from a script, you then go down to some key phrases that guide you through, you then go down to bullet points, then go down to words, and eventually the more you deliver this thing, it just becomes natural. And you might not say it in the same way, exactly the same way, but you will be able to deliver so much more confidently, and the audience will be much more engaged if they feel like it's a conversation rather than just you reciting a script. And of course, the bits that are important that you get word for word, you'll have memorized them because you've thought that through.
Sure.
The rest of it, though, can be very natural.
Nice. Nice. I want to go back to your business card a little bit, partially because I'm looking at it right here on the screen. I love what you've done with this QR code for folks who are visual. They can scan that, I assume, and contact you.
Absolutely. It should take to my website.
That's beautiful. All right. Corporate event host. So are you teaching in a corporate environment? Tell me more about that particular piece of what you do.
Sure. So the role of the host is one step removed, actually, because what the role of a host is to take people through an event. So an award ceremony, for instance, there might be a 3-course meal. They might have booked me to do some entertainment at the beginning. There might be some awards to present. It could be 10 or it could be 30 or 40. There might be a speech. There might be an auction. There could be, and my job as host isn't necessarily to be the star of the show in that sense, but it's to lead people through an event. And obviously what I do is I use my background in performance, and I use my comedy and magic as a bit of an opening set, because what the comedy and magic does is it enables me to get people involved, capture the attention of an audience, which at a corporate event can be quite distracted, because let's face it, they're not there to see me, they're there to have a nice meal, do some networking, probably get drunk and impress the boss. They're there not to see me at all. So sometimes the hardest bit is getting their attention, but the comedy and magic does that quite well. Then it gives me the kind of position to say, right, come with me now for the rest of the event. And I can build, so I specialize in high energy, outstanding audience rapport and zero cringe. So no offense, no humiliation, right? And so I always say that comedy magic enables me to have all of those things so that when I'm hosting, it could be a 3-hour event, but because I specialize in those things, I'm able to carry an audience through and say, come on, let's keep up the energy for the awards. Let's keep it up in terms of how I am on stage and how I engage.
Wonderful. So you're almost building up to an event. Like if the big award is at the end of the show, you're
Absolutely.
rallying people a little more, a little more, a little more with each presentation as it goes so that they kind of, hit that fever pitch at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, love that.
That's the goal anyway. And it does work, because I always say the energy that you bring to an audience is exactly the energy that they'll give back. So whenever I watch a managing director, there was one story. I was at a corporate event. It was one of my early ones. I had years of experience, but doing just comedy magic, but this was one of my first corporate stuff. And this managing director was introducing me, and he got up on stage and he had about 3 A4 pages of script to read. He read it in a very mundane voice with a crowd that was too busy talking, and at that point I learned my lesson. Food was on the table already. Bad idea. They had starters on the table, so they're eating bread rolls, they're chatting. He's working his way through this 3-page script, oblivious to the fact, I think, that nobody was listening. And I knew that he was about to introduce me, and I'm thinking, oh man, I'm walking into a very tough gig here. Now, thankfully, because of what I do, and because I'd done it a few times before, I was able to win that audience back, and the event was fine. But that moment of going, oh, he's not thought about how you capture attention. He's not thought about any of this. He's just setting his script, and he's off. And regardless of what happens, he's getting through it.
That's got to be a tough spot to be if you're getting set up by somebody who's, just oblivious to the
I
crowd.
have a professional voiceover introduce me now. I don't leave it. I don't leave it in the hands of anyone else.
That's wonderful. Speaking of professional voiceovers, with what you do you utilize AI and that type of thing at all in what you do?
I haven't yet, not in the show. But what AI is very helpful for is idea generation.
Hmm.
So if you're, and this relates back to those planning a speech. If you're thinking of, oh, what can I use from my life that could be an illustration of this? How could I be creative about this? What could be an object that might be an illustration? What prop could I bring that could illustrate this or cause intrigue at the beginning of my talk if I leave it on a table, or whatever it could be? And you can use AI to explore some of those ideas. I always say 90% of what it gives you might be rubbish, but what it does is it starts to generate those thoughts in your head. I've got a list of questions for when I'm trying to write comedy for a routine. I've made a list of I think there's about 50 questions or so. Things like, what would this look like if it went terribly wrong? What are the audience expecting that I could then twist on its head? So there's loads of questions like that. And what I do is I describe the routine that I'm working on. So I don't know, I borrow a wedding ring, it vanishes, it reappears inside a Kinder egg, whatever. So okay, I've got that idea. I type the concept in and I give AI all these questions, and it starts to tell me, if this went terribly wrong, the ring could blah blah blah, and it gets me thinking on ideas of how I can bring comedy into that routine.
Nice. I mean, if that's all AI ever does is get us thinking a little differently, then I suppose it's useful, right?
Absolutely.
All right, I love that. Okay. Talking about the presentation, I've heard a lot of different thoughts from different speaking coaches on visual aids,
Yeah.
whether it be a PowerPoint presentation or something physical that you have, like a poster board or whatever. For folks who are starting off, folks who are experienced, is there a benefit to using that to get going, maybe? Or, I mean, what's your recommendation on using it versus not using it and who it may help?
I think it helps if you use it well. It can be really effective. If you don't use it well, it can just be a bit weird, and people don't understand what you've used it for. So years ago, I remember I went on a weekend training course in the art of busking. Now, do you call it busking over in the States? Like street performing?
I don't even know what busking is, so I don't
Okay.
think
So
we do. Yeah, street
in the
performing in
UK,
what way?
there's an art called busking, so it means you might perform on the streets. So if you go to Covent Garden in London, you'll see opera singers in the corner of a street
Oh,
singing, and then have a guitar case or a hat or something or on the floor, and people drop money in as they go through. Um, I remember, and in Covent Garden, it's not so common to see magicians, but in the big cities, you quite often see magicians performing on the streets. And what they'll do is they'll gather a little crowd around them in the middle of a busy shopping space, and people will stand there and watch for 10 minutes whilst they do a circus act or a magic act or sing or whatever it might be. And I remember going on a weekend course from a guy called Mario who was teaching how to busk or street perform really well. Mario made a living from street performing. So he would make a living from people donating or giving their spare change. And he would get hundreds of people giving him £5 notes every time he did it, or because he'd mastered the art of it. And one of the things he said to me, I remember at the time, I was doing a straitjacket escape. A
wow.
live straitjacket escape. I used to finish my show with a straitjacket escape. And I took this into the street performing. And he said, Tom, he said, use that straitjacket to your advantage. Because if people see a straitjacket, they're going to want to know what you're going to do with it. And when you say you're going to escape, they're going to want to watch you escape. So he said, at the beginning of your street performance, have the straitjacket and make a big deal of it so that people use it as an attractor so that people come and stand by your performance spot.
Hmm.
And so I did. People would come and they'd see me with the straitjacket, and I'd be shouting away, drawing attention to the straitjacket. I would then do maybe 10 minutes of other routines, but every now and then referring back to the straitjacket. People would keep coming. By the end, I had people waiting for that straitjacket to perform, right? Then, of course, I put the straitjacket put the straitjacket on, and so I put my arms in, and then it's tied up at the back, and it's tied up under my legs and around my arms, and I stand there for another 5 minutes talking or making jokes. And Mario said to me, he said, "Tom, at this point, you're in the straitjacket. People are joining, like people are joining around. The crowds are gathering because they're seeing this guy in the middle of a town centre wearing a straitjacket. They're joining in number." He said, "This is the point to do your pitch and ask for money," because he said they're not going to leave until you've escaped. And it's true. So I started to do my pitch. I wasn't very good at that point, but I did my pitch, and then I would do my escape. And I tell you, by the end of that straitjacket escape, I probably had the biggest crowd that I could have gathered, because I'd used that prop to draw the attention, get them gathered round, and then I referenced it all the way through, and at the end I finished with it. Now, if you can take that principle and apply it to your keynote presentation or whatever it is you're doing, now your audience might already be there, but can you imagine that level of intrigue at the very beginning, so much so that they're not going to switch off because they want to know what you're going to do with the rubber chicken or the straitjacket or whatever it might be for you. It doesn't have to be as random as that. But they want to know what the point of it is. And so if you can apply the same principle to have something of intrigue, something that's people are going to ask questions. It could be a cardboard box. No one knows what's in it. Whatever it is, if you can cause intrigue at the beginning and draw that out right through to the end, and then make your final point around that prop, you're going to capture that attention from an audience so much more.
Love it. That was such a fantastic answer to that question. I mean, I'm sorry. I was just enthralled the whole time. I'm like a fan listening to you right now. So that was great, Tom. I appreciate you bringing that to our show here today. Now you do sort of offer people help on getting started. You've got a 10 ideas to help level up thing. Tell me
Sure.
about that.
Do you know, actually, I've just updated it. It's a done for you speech blueprint. So if you go to hellotom.co.uk/showman, what it does is it gives you a blueprint that you can, almost like a checklist, I guess, of things that you can look through, and you can go, I can think. It gives you a list of things to think about when you're preparing for a keynote. So you can think about, is there a prop that I can use? You can think about what's the structure. It's basically everything I coach, but just on a simplified paper form. And it just gets you thinking for yourself, because anyone can work this through. You can think it through and think, what can I do to make this talk more engaging, more exciting? How can I build into something so that they're listening right at the beginning and they're stayed there right to the end? And just give you a list of ideas. And if you want some support with that and work through that with me, by all means get in touch. And that's kind of where the coaching comes in. But it gives you the kind of starting base for you to go ahead and think a bit more creatively or a bit more theatrically about your keynote.
Love it. I'll make sure that the website's in our show notes, so everybody can click on that and then, click through the website and pick that up. I think that it really sounds like a serious value to be able to kind of get that framework and look at it. And then obviously, if you're blown away by that and you want to talk to you, then there's a way to contact you directly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Tom at hellotom.co.uk. Just remember,
Nice. Hello,
hellotom.co.uk.
Tom. All right, perfect. We'll make sure that's in the show notes. Like I said, we'll have it there for you. Tom, I have really enjoyed this. I hope that you have too. And, we have a lot of speakers who are listening to this podcast as it grows, and you're giving them so much advice and help. Let me kind of go back to that well one last time as we, sort of wrap this up today. What's one piece of advice you can kind of leave with everybody? Maybe a leave behind or some encouragement, whatever it might be, for either aspiring or beginner speakers who are, really trying to put this together, get this going. They really want to make a go of this, this speaking thing. What
Yeah.
can you say to them on your way out?
I would say for keynote speaking, make it about one thing. Don't try and say more than one thing. You might have three different ways of saying one thing, uh, but ultimately, your keynote should revolve around the audience going away with one thing in their heads. As I said, you might tell three different stories that bring three different elements of that thing together. But ultimately, all three of those points are driving them into the same direction. And that what that one thing is should be your kind of through line. So use that line throughout the talk. Tell a story, make a point, then remind them of your one thing, your one through line. Tell another story, make another point, but then drive it back home to that one point. Because ultimately, people only take action on what they remember. And so if you've got an amazing keynote full of points, if they don't remember any of it, what was the point in doing it in the first place? So you want them to go away thinking about one thing that they can go and do.
Love it. Another great piece of advice. All right, great way for us to close. Corporate event host, comedy magician, and public speaking coach, founder of Showman to Speaker, the coaching program. Speaking coach Tom Elliott. Tom, thank you, brother, for coming on here and sharing what you have for all our folks listening. It's been great. Thank you for coming.
Rory, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right, folks, this has been another spectacular episode of Step Up to the Mic. If you're an aspiring or current speaker and you want to bring your talk to the masses, folks, message us today. Never stop talking and let us help you to step up to the mic.